No, it's not.
How are you? Thank you for being here. How do you see your Someday I'll learn. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to our city council meeting this evening. Hope you all feel as I do. It's wonderful to have this rainy weather. Although we thrive on sunshine, we do need to have water to drink, and we're grateful for it. And we're just hoping we're getting lots of snow up in Pine Valley Mountain and Kolob. I hear from some good sources we're getting at least some, but whatever influence you all have on the weather, I ask you to use it. we need lots more snow up in them Bar Hills. So,
Mayor,
yes, ma'am.
I just came through Sarnia National Park on my way home from north, and it is snowing really hard. There was already about a foot on the ground, but the waterfalls are unbelievable. If you've never seen that, every single little gully has a waterfall, and they're gushing water coming out of those.
It's a great time to see those, isn't it?
And no people.
Right.
And no rangers.
Well, only
There's
a few.
nothing there. No,
Betty doesn't do that.
never.
Thank you, Betty. Glad you're here safe, traveling from Richfield today. Probably some interesting weather coming over I-70. And yeah. Okay, well, if we could, let's see. I believe we've got tonight Pastor Jimmy Keston to lead us in an invocation, after which Councilwoman Michelle Randall will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Jimmy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and what a joy to be back with you in this new year, and thank you for those of you who made it to Prayer Over the City. What a joy it was having you with us, and Mayor, great to hear from you at Prayer Over the City again, and praying for weather is one of my favorite pastimes, so we'll include that as we open in prayer today. Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for this place that you've given us to call home. We are thankful for the community that you've given us and the way that this community pulls together, works together, and seeks to make life better for all of its citizens. We thank you for these who have been called to serve this community in both elected and appointed in office, and all of our city workers for all of the amazing work they do to keep this city running smoothly. Lord, we do ask and thank you for this rain and snow in the mountains, and Lord, we ask that you would fill our reservoirs to capacity this year, that you would bring plenty of snowpack, bringing us into spring, and as you do that, Lord, we also ask that you keep all of those traveling on our roads safe and secure, and we ask for your blessing upon us as we conduct the business of this council today. We thank you for this and pray in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Jimmy.
If you all stand and repeat the pledge with me.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate everybody again being here. Councilman Hughes will be here, but he had a situation he needed to deal with his profession, and if you know his profession, some tragic things sometimes happen, and so he's working on one of those right now, but we anticipate he'll be here soon. So we have today, before we start our formal written agenda, we have several things that I'm pleased, Council, and those of you in the public today, to be able to present. We have 3 proclamations, and I'd like to do those one at a time here and have you know about these 3 organizations and some of the things they do. Jimmy, that was like right on cue. Yeah. First one is regarding the Assistance League of Southern Utah. Any of you ever heard of the Assistance League? I hope you have. They do great work. So I'm cheating a little so I can see this. So whereas the Assistance League of Southern Utah was formed as a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization in the city of St. George to serve the most vulnerable in our community, and whereas Assistance League continues to provide new clothing and shoes for more than 800 students, and whereas Assistance League continues to support our school system with books for classroom and school libraries and provides small group or individual reading times to at-risk students, and provides children new books for their homes, and promotes success in school by teaching young parents the importance of reading to their children. And whereas Assistance League members care about our community and donate over 12,000 hours of service each year, and whereas Assistance League will continue to support children in this year, I, therefore, Jonathan T. Pike, Mayor of the City of St. George, do hereby proclaim February 2nd through February 9th, 2019 as Assistance League of Southern Utah Week. And I would like to invite their president and the rest of their group up to the podium and have them talk about just a little bit. I know they've got a key event on February 9th. Just love to have them say anything they want to for a moment about that and anything else. And I'm going to sign this and I'll bring it down to you in just a moment. So please bring your group up, President, and maybe just stand right in front of that, facing us. Facing you. Yeah, that'll work the best. Talking to the mic, yep. And then have either introduce them or have them introduce themselves.
Okay. All right. What do you prefer, group? All right. My name is Gail Newman. I'm currently president of the organization, and with me is Sue Gilliam, who is past president, immediately preceding me, Mary Aldrich, who is a member of our board and serves as our secretary, Roberta Robinson, who's in charge of grants and corporate fundraising, and my husband, Charlie Newman, who is our technology vice president. So we are very pleased that you're able to do this for us. We appreciate it. It helps us in our fundraising efforts and our community outreach to help people understand what we do. And as the proclamation said, we do provide new school clothing for kids who often have never had new school clothing before. And the way we do that is we take them shopping at Walmart, and they get to choose their own clothes. It matters to them a lot that they get to choose what they're going to wear. And we've got great stories that I won't tell you now, but if you're interested, see me. We can tell you all about it. Or come on the 9th. Mayor Pike is a good publicity person. We do have our annual spring benefit on February the 9th at the Hilton Garden Inn, and we'd love to have any or all of you come. You can register on our website, www.alofsu.org. So thank you very much. And anybody in the audience as well, all are welcome. Yeah. So thanks again.
This to you, President Newman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pike, I appreciate it.
How about if we turn around for a minute and then let's have David Cordero take a picture of us, if that's okay.
Okay.
I'll just sneak in the back. I'll photobomb.
Many thanks.
That way he can give you a little more publicity. How's that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have attended the Assistant League Gala, and it's a beautiful organization, and they do a tremendous amount of good work in our community. So.
Thank you. I agree. I remember, I think the first time I got acquainted with you all, it was at what used to be East Elementary, and they were actually doing their work right there, and that's where I first met them. That's been a number of years ago, but they just continue to do incredible work. So anyway, thank you for being here, and thank you, Betty. Now, this proclamation is a little longer, but it's really cool. Look at this paper it's on. Thanks, Christina, for finding paper that was long enough and could contain some Old English language, right, Chris? That we'll see how the mayor does on this one. If I stumble, I'll give it to Jimmy. Okay, so this is a proclamation regarding Freemasons' Day. Whereas Masonry is descended from the medieval craft guild, and the stonemasons, being vital as skilled craftsmen, were free to travel without warrant and became known as Freemasons. Whereas Freemasons were the builders of castles, cathedrals, and other stone edifices, and traveled to and far and distant lands to ply their craft, and constructed lodges for protection from the elements during labor, and as an abode for sustenance and a respite, as well as gathering place for visiting brothers and from distant lodges. And whereas the Freemasons of operative lodges accepted speculative members and became known as free and accepted Masons, and began forming independent lodges, keeping, okay, hang in there, surreptitious the ancient methods and techniques of the craft and ritual of a lodge, and also the secret modes of recognizing an unknown visiting brother. And whereas more than 300 years ago, the brothers of 4 independent lodges of free and accepted Masons met in the Good and Gitteron Tavern in London, England, on Thursday, June 24th, 1717. That's been a couple years ago. St. John's the Baptist Day, and formed the Grand Lodge to standardize the many rituals, advance the craft, and thus give birth to modern Freemasonry. And whereas Freemasonry would flourish and propagate and become the world's oldest and largest fraternities, with tens of millions of men becoming members over the centuries, and would come to the New World, that's here, St. George, no, the New World, and established Masonic lodges in the 13 original colonies, as noted by Brother Benjamin Franklin in 1730. And whereas Freemasons were many of our founding fathers and were influential in the American independence and were signers of the Declaration of Independence, creators of the Continental Congress, and Brother George Washington, having founded the Continental Army, would become the first of 14 United States presidents who were Freemasons. And whereas Freemasonry came to the Utah Territory almost 160 years ago during the presidency of Brother James Buchanan, a Freemason, when by special dispensation by the Grand Lodge of Missouri, Rocky Mountain Lodge number 205 was chartered. And whereas the Grand Lodge of Utah was formed in 1872, and welcomed Wasatch Lodge number 1 and Mount Moriah Lodge number 2, chartered as the first Masonic lodges in the Utah Territory. And whereas on January 31st, 1994, the Grand Lodge of Utah issued a charter to St. George Masonic Lodge number 33, thus establishing the first and only lodge of Freemasonry within the city of St. George in Washington County. And in 2019, celebrating its 25th anniversary therein. And whereas Masonry is philanthropic and over the centuries has become known for the charitable work, including supporting orphanages and schools, caring for the elderly, sustaining children's hospitals, underwriting medical research, establishing clinics for learning disabilities, promoting child safety, training educators about at-risk children, advocating literacy, and participating in local community service projects while quietly raising hundreds of millions of dollars annually to support these and many other programs. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jonathan T. Pike, Mayor of the City of St. George, Utah, do hereby proclaim January 31st, 2019 as Free and Accepted Masons Day in the City of St. George. That's a mouthful, but isn't that great information? Really cool. Thank you. I want to thank Chris Mitchell, as well as our recorder, Christina Fernandez, for working all that out. And what I'd like to do is invite you and those with you to come up to the podium as we did before. I'd like to present this to you, and then we can maybe take a photo. And if there's anything you'd like to say, Chris, be happy to have you do that. Thank you very much.
Mayor, thank you. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule. On behalf of the Brethren of St. George Lodge 33, again, we thank you very much. It means a lot to us that you granted us this proclamation. Masonry in general, we have our Shriners Hospitals, Right Care for the speech impaired, and the Knights Templar Eye Foundation. So we put about $1.4 million a day towards charities with these hospitals and research foundations. So it's exciting. One of the biggest things that we do here locally is our Bikes for Books program. And that is, we give out bicycles to children in the elementary schools, grades K through 5th grade. And we challenge them to read books. And they're monitored by the teachers, and they take every book they read, it goes into a drawing. And the end of the semester, they get drawn for a bicycle. And we give them a bicycle, a helmet, and a t-shirt. And we started last year with 1 school. We're up to 4 schools, and we plan on growing. So we just look for the community's help to raise the funds to do that.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
And we thank you. We really, really appreciate this. This is exciting for the lodge.
Well, you have a day now.
We have a day.
Yeah.
And
Well,
thanks to Christina. She was a huge help to get this successful.
Yep.
Thank you.
Let's stand up here, and David will take a picture,
Okay.
maybe with your camera as well as ours.
Okay.
How's that? See that?
See?
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it.
So, Council, I know you all know this, and I hope the public is aware. You know, when you think of St. George and what makes it work, there are so many organizations and groups of people that take their time and spend their time and their resource to help individuals and school children, whatever it may be. There's so many things like this. We have 2 fine examples here today of those kinds of organizations. Thank you for making St. George work. So, Jimmy, I'd like to have you do the last proclamation about a holiday that's coming up here on Monday.
Perfect. Love to, Mayor. Okay, here we go. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. made a significant and long-lasting contributions to the social and economic progress within our nation through the movement toward racial equality and civil rights for all people, no matter their race, color, creed, or occupation, including the push to desegregate public and private institutions and to provide fair rights and appropriate labor laws. And whereas, through peaceful protests and non-violent public demonstrations, Dr. King was a catalyst for change in how African Americans are treated, and stated that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And whereas, to commemorate the life and legacy of Dr. King, on November 2nd, 1983, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill to declare Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a federal holiday to be observed annually on the 3rd Monday of January to represent Dr. King's birthday. And whereas the City of St. George recognizes and honors the contributions made by Dr. King and pledges to promote universal respect for and observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day and the civil rights guaranteed to all residents throughout the city and our nation. And whereas, as we honor Dr. King this month, which would have been Dr. King's 90th birthday, it is appropriate for us to recognize and pay tribute to his inclusive civil rights work for all communities. Now, therefore, he, Jonathan T. Pike, Mayor of the City of St. George, do hereby join with community members in proclaiming Monday, January 21st, 2019 as Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy. We appreciate it. And again, I hope we have another day off. Well, not all of us, but most of us have a day off on Monday. But I hope we'd take a few minutes and talk about the kinds of things and rights that are important to each one of us. And if he were here, I'd love to shake his hand. So it's interesting where it's, didn't you say his 90th birthday? It would be his 90th birthday this month. So anyway, thanks to everyone again for indulging us as we do these proclamations. I think they're important, helps us recognize important things going on in our community. So, Adam, maybe a change or two to the agenda?
We've just got a couple of things to clarify. On the agenda, item F on the consent calendar, that item is going to be removed. And then item number 3 from the regular agenda, we'll remove that one as well. And then I would just point out that we do have a 6-item addendum that was added late. So those are the changes that we have tonight. So
Okay.
Consent calendar, item F, item number 3 on the regular agenda, and then the 6-item addendum.
Any questions on the consent calendar items, Council? Otherwise, if there aren't any individual questions that you'd like to pull out, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Mayor, I'd just like to say that it warrants attention to be brought to the items A, B, and C, and D because they all deal with traffic signals and public safety, and our citizens have been very vocal and just letting their concerns and desires known as far as signals, and so this shows the action that's being taken on their behalf, and particularly that 1450 and 3000 East traffic signals that will be installed there. It's quite meaningful.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Thanks,
I'd
Ed.
like to move that we approve the consent calendar brought before us.
Second. We have a motion by Betty and a second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And again, thanks to Cameron and his team in Public Works. It takes a lot of work to prepare for these signals. And so here we are, we're awarding the bids that we have much of the equipment already, if not all of it. So we will see these start to be installed shortly, right, Cameron? And a very busy corridor. You might notice members of the public, all 3 of those are on 3000 East. Did I get that right? I did.
And
3 of the 4. The other is on
Medical
Center Drive.
Right.
And right by where the hospital, the new cancer center entrance in particular intersects Medical Center Drive and Foremaster. So important areas, lots of growth. These are the ways we're dealing with it. It's an important investment, of course. It's an expensive investment, about $200,000 to $300,000 each. And so these are the first 4. We'll probably have a couple more in the course of the next 12 months, wouldn't you say, Cameron? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Council. Thanks, Cameron.
Cameron, if you're trying to decide on which one to start on first, I can give you some help there.
See,
I like C.
Adam?
All right, Mayor. For item number 2, this is public hearing consideration of amendments to the fiscal year 19 budget. And for this, we'd like to ask our budget manager, Deanna Berklasich, to come present to us.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are at 50% of our budget year as of December 31st, and our departments are doing a pretty good job, but we do have some budget openings to bring before you. And there's several, so I'll try to go through fairly quickly and highlight some of the bigger items and explain those. Number one is just to increase our budget for a scoreboard at the Sand Hollow Aquatic Center. We had approved money in the budget, and the Washington County School District came to us and indicated they would help fund a little bit more of that school board or scoreboard if we improved it a little bit, because they have their swim meets, and that's for $9,200. Number two is just to replace a copier machine at the Art Museum. We had a lightning strike, and they were able to salvage a lot of the equipment and electronics there, except for this copy machine for $3,315. Number three is to replace some UV sanitation system that did fell on us earlier than we planned. They have found money in other portions of their budget to reallocate that. The total is $12,500 of a reallocation. Number four is for the Dixie Red Hills Golf Clubhouse. We did have that in our budget for $700,000. It was bid out, and the bids did come in higher than our original estimates by $197,000. That will be funded by our Economic Development Fund. Number five is just through increased activity with our youth programs, our karate, tumbling, and so forth. We are getting more revenues, but also paying more fees to our professional services, our instructors. That's for $11,100. Number six is we had a golf course mower fail at Sunbrook Golf Course. They have found some money in their budgets to cover that, all but $12,500. So we'll have to cover that. Number seven is for the Snake Hollow Bicycle Park grand opening. We expended $6,200 for that grand opening, which was an amazing event, and we were able to sell some t-shirts and hats and continue to sell merchandise to offset some of the costs for that grand opening. However, there's about $3,000 that's not covered that we'll have to do a budget opening for as a net cost. Number eight is for the airport parking lot expansion project. We did have $680,000 in this current year budget, and that did help us with the curb and gutter and the asphalt. And however, to finish the lighting and wire it for security cameras, we'll need to use another $106,000, increase the budget for that. Fortunately, we did refund some bonds that are specific to the airport project, and from those savings, we're able to use those monies to help fund that increase in the lighting and wiring. Number nine is the CDBG fund. We had outsourced the administration for that. We've decided to bring that back in-house and create a new position for that. This funding is for half of a year of $25,000. However, what we will do is we'll reduce the outsource cost and just fund the in-house cost. So it's basically a wash. Number 10 is we had budgeted for a professional consultant to come and look at our compensation system for $100,000, and we were able to do that all in-house. And so we're able to put that money back into the general fund to be used for other projects. Number 11, we did a reorganization between our development services and our engineering department. And so that entry that you see there, it's a combined total of about $622,000. It's just moving money from one department to another. The net cost of that is zero. So number 12 is on page 3, if you're following along. And actually number 13 on the next page are, they can be taken together. The difference is number 12 is in regards to the general fund, and number 13 is those departments that are outside of our general fund, like the water department, energy services, Suntran, and so forth. And what you're seeing there is when we prepare the budget, we do estimate an across-the-board increase for our market and merit compensation that goes into effect in December of 2018. We did have a few changes to the compensation plan, plus the amount that we had budgeted for was a little lower than what the actual studies showed. And so what you're seeing there with number 12 is increases to each of the different departments, and some departments did see some decreases because we may have budgeted a little bit high on new employees and they may have come in a little bit less than what we anticipated originally. So this is a number 12 and 13 are to bring that up to the actual compensation approved in December. And so number 12 for the general fund is about $494,500 in total. That does include costs of FICA and retirement, all those additional costs that come online when we increase any of those expenses. And number 13 is a combined total of about $244,600, even though it kind of looks odd, but that's us accounting entries that we have to do. Number 14 is to appropriate monies for the art district signage for the downtown area, and they are funded by the RAP tax monies. Number 15 again is this is in the RAP tax fund, but it's kind of exciting. It's to recognize $1 million for the missing link between the Fossil Hills Trail up to the Mill Creek Generation Facility. And so the state of Utah, UDOT, gave us $500,000 to match the $500,000 that we've already got in the budget, and the county also gave us $500,000. So it's basically three-way funding at this point, with $500,000 being contributed to that trail project, which is pretty exciting. So
it is. I heard we actually got some other exciting news today, just in terms of that some of that those easements are already in place.
Oh.
I heard through Millie, so that's good. That should help us move that along.
Yeah, that's great. Number 16 is we did approve a arborist position for the Energy Services Department, where we had outsourced some of our tree pruning for our power lines. We'll bring that function in-house to our Energy Services Department, and they'll work in conjunction with our Parks Department personnel as well. Number 17 is just a development agreement with a developer on Red Hills Parkway and I-15 underpass for traffic signal and traffic arms. Number 18 is to approve a land purchase for $1,250,000 for property located on South Main Street. I'm moving right along. Number 19. This is just more of a housekeeping item. We had budgeted, this is for the road widening project from Riverside Drive to 1450 South on River Road. UDOT is handling that project, but we had to pay a $50,000 upfront payment. We thought it was going to be in the last fiscal year. It's going to occur in this fiscal year. So we're just moving that from one year to the next. Number 20 is to budget $70,000 from the RAP tax fund for a feasibility study and site analysis of a performing arts center. And number 21 is to recognize a $600,000 contribution from the county to help us put in phase 2 of the Snake Hollow Bicycle Skills Park. And that will go towards creating a NICA loop system, which will accommodate statewide student-athlete events, and also will help fund paving a parking lot in that area. And that wraps up.
Just want to mention a couple things in council. If you have any comments, you're free to do those before we open a public hearing on this item. Deanna, first, thank you for tracking all this and getting this to the point where it can be presented today. I just want to highlight that, you know, I appreciate personally the county, and it's really specifically tourism dollars that they approved in December to be funded this year. to help things that tie to tourism. I appreciate that they're doing that and they're looking very closely at those kinds of things. So you see just in here $1.1 million from the county between those two items that will make a significant difference to us in items that tie to tourism, but also are used by us, you know, every day in both cases. Yeah. The bike trail and the bike park. So that'll be great, won't it? Any comments, questions, council, before I open the public hearing on any of these items?
Mayor, I'd just like to speak to item number 4. At least the public have concern over these great number of expenditures that are taking place. This has to do with the Red Hills Golf Course. This is an item that has been in the works for over, I think, 15 years. Things that the prior councils have committed to and discussed, and in keeping with trying to fulfill our fiduciary responsibilities. This has taken a great deal of time, and a lot of people are involved to get this to fruition, and it also will impact upon the tourists and availability. So it took a little time, but we got there, and the prior councils who led the way on this thing, we appreciate their efforts as well.
Well, and thanks Ed and Joe for being part of the committee, in addition to citizens, golfers, and our staff who were working on that for the last couple of years. Mark, I think, will be probably ready to. In fact, there already are some things going on with this. We're just recognizing the change. So, following the council's direction on this. Any other comments, questions, council? Adam, anything else? Okay. Anything else, Dee?
No, I just want to say I can't take all the credit. All the department heads and our employees evaluate their budgets closely, and they submit this information to me, so this is just a consolidation. So I appreciate all their work.
Well, thank you. But we all know that there's some level of magic that Deanna works and keeps track and knows, I swear, in her head where things are and what we can do and what we can't do. So thank you, Deanna. At this point, council, I'll open the public hearing for anyone who may be here and would like to make comments on this item, which is, again, this is a review and a proposal to approve amendments to this year's fiscal budget, as has been described. Any input or questions from the public? Seeing none, I got a thumbs up from Judy. So seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for any discussion or for your motion.
Mayor, I will make a motion that we approve the amendments to the fiscal year 2018-19 budget.
Second.
I have a motion by Michelle with a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Ed, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you again, everybody. So we're on to number 4.
Item number 4.
Okay.
And council, we apologize. We are having some issues with our monitors, and we're worried that if we adjust the splitter that's in there that we might lose that one too. And so we're going to try to limp by on just the one screen. We apologize to the audience, but we'll do our best to make that one work for tonight.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. We are here to hear the public hearing and consideration of an ordinance changing the zone from MG, mining and grazing, to R110, single-family residential. The lot size is approximately 15.31 acres, and this is for a future residential subdivision called Tonnequit Ridge, out west of Curly Hollow Drive. Here's kind of an aerial over here. It's way out there. Here's the intermediate school. Curly Hollow right now does not extend this far, but this is the plan to extend it out to the subdivision. There was a phase 1 that has already been approved of this subdivision, and this is to approve this second half here. Zoning, we've got LDR, low density residential. And this is showing the general plan, which is mining and grazing, and then the request is just to change it to R110 to match the first phase of this subdivision. Oops. I guess that was it. That's all I had on my pictures. I thought I had at least one more. But anyway, we did present this to the Planning Commission. They recommended approval on this zone change.
And they would be required, the developer, to extend the road and so forth, and
Yes.
their
Yes.
whatever commitments they have in
Yes.
conjunction with that.
Yes, and actually, they, there's a piece of land that they'd like to start developing on this before the one that's already been approved. That's why they're kind of moving ahead with this before they work on the other one. So, yeah, they are required to do their half of Curly Hollow. It's a long, long distance.
It is. Been in the planning stages for a long time. Questions, council? Okay, then I will open the public hearing on this item number 4 on our agenda for anyone who may have come to offer input or ask a question on this item. Not too many neighbors out there yet. So I will, maybe some jackrabbits.
Well, you know, Mayor, there are a few out there because you can't think of Tonnequit and Curly Hollow Drive without thinking parks.
That's
and
true.
Future planning for parks. So
That's true.
this is just another step.
Then I will close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for your action if you're ready.
Mayor, I move to change the zoning from MG, mining and grazing, to R110, single-family residence, on a 10,000 square foot minimum lot, with a 10,000 square foot minimum lot size, on approximately 17.77 acres for a future residential subdivision to be known as Tonnequit Ridge.
Second.
I have a motion by Betty with a second by Michelle. Any discussion on the motion?
The acreage doesn't seem to appear to what you had said.
I just forgot the name of it. Your agendas are wrong. It is 15.31 acres.
Thank you.
The staff report is correct, but the agenda is wrong.
Thank you. 15.31 acres.
15.31 acres.
So with that modification to the motion, if you're okay with that, Betty and Michelle. Thank you, Joe. Any other comments on the motion? All in favor, starting with Betty this time, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Carol.
Good catch, Joe.
Next item, item number 5, consider approval of a conditional use permit for Humblebee Tattoo located at 763 North, 3050 East Street. The zoning is C3. So this is a request for a tattoo shop located in the C3. In the C3, a tattoo establishment is a conditional use permit, thus the request. This is the location. This is 3050 located here. This is Panther Way, and right there at the corner is a commercial buildings with several suites, and so they are requesting to go in one of these suites. They did provide a narrative describing their business and compliance. They will comply with all of the local, state, and federal regulations. They will go through the health department and get the appropriate approvals through the health department. The health department has reviewed it preliminarily, and they'll continue to work with the health district. This is a couple street views of the building. Again, it's just in that parking lot of Costco right at that intersection of Panther Way and 3050. Planning Commission reviewed this item and did provide some conditions that are outlined in the staff report. They also recommended approval with the findings that are located in the staff report, and so they did recommend approval. And they do propose that they'll be open from noon to 9, and this is the suite, the unit. This is the floor plan. They will be open from noon to 9 and closed on Mondays. They will have 2 workstations, and the remaining portion of the unit will be office and storage in the reception area. Again, staff or Planning Commission reviewed it, recommend approval with the conditions and the findings listed in the staff report. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John? I didn't see anything in the conditions that looked unusual.
No, pretty standard on the other tattoo establishments we've seen.
Council?
I'm just smiling because it's called Humblebee Tattoo. And if you read his letter, he said he humbly appreciates our time and consideration.
Nice.
Which was good.
Oh, and I was just going to ask him what humblebee meant. I didn't know bees could be humble.
Well, it just makes me think of the Bumblebee Tuna song. That's all I could think.
Oh, wow.
Right, it's very creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor, I couldn't help but take notices to the hours and the proximity of this to Pineview High School. And the operating hours will be from 12 to 9. And I understand no smoking shop items are to be sold on these premises. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, why don't you, if there's anything you'd like to add, you're on your own, apparently. Yeah.
She's pregnant, so it's easier on her.
Tell
So
us
to
your
answer
name for the
question,
record.
Humble, stay humble, but be busy and work, and it just keeps our head clean. So
Makes a lot of sense.
And then my daughter actually graduated valedictorian from Pineview High School, so go Panthers. As far as proximity there, no smoking, anything. We're a drug and alcohol-free facility, and we want to represent our city of St. George with the utmost amount of respect and humility. So.
And you are Jason Workman,
Yes.
correct? Okay,
Yes, sir.
just for the record. Thank you.
All right.
Any questions for Jason? Nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, council, I'm ready for your action if you are.
I will humbly approve the conditional use permit for Humblebee Tattoo.
I will strongly support that and second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Michelle and a second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to grant this conditional use permit, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. You bet. Have a good night.
You guys ready?
We're humbly waiting for you. Waiting for an invitation, right?
I am. Okay, item 6 is a request to consider approval of a one-lot residential final subdivision plat called Entrada at Snow Canyon, Chaco West Phase 3B. Representative is Trueline Surveying. Property is located at approximately 2485 North Kiva Trail. Zone is PDR. All aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff and it meets the conditions of the preliminary plat. Basically, it's just a one-lot subdivision out in Entrada. Everything else has been platted or developed around it. Right here is the border between St. George and Santa Clara. So if you look on your map, there is where the lot lies relative to the Entrada development.
Any questions for Wes on this final subdivision plat, council?
Motion to approve. Or do you want to wait for an invitation?
No.
Oh.
You're free to move.
We've already bumbled this one. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the final plat for Chaco West Phase 3B.
Okay, we have a motion by Jimmy and I think several seconds. Ed got the first one, so any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, item 7 is a request to consider approval of a 122-lot residential subdivision final plat called Auburn Hills Phase 1. Representative is Bush and Gudgel. Property is located in the new Desert Color Development Zone is PDR. All aspects of this final plat reviewed by staff and it meets the conditions of the preliminary plat. So this is it right here. You've seen this various times, and this is their first phase, Phase 1.
Desert color.
Here they come.
It's getting going. Any
It
questions,
is.
council?
is that true?
Yeah,
I think it is.
it is.
Awesome.
Yep.
traditional neighborhood zone.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
Motion to approve the final subdivision plat for Auburn Hills Phase 1.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Joe. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
No, it's all right.
Welcome back, John.
This next item is consider approval of a resolution declaring the intent to consider adjusting a common municipal boundary line with the city of Santa Clara. And so this is a request to adjust a boundary. This is the exhibit that was provided by the applicant. This is one overlaid on a map. You can see a little bit better. The yellow line is City of St. George current boundary. And so what the applicant is requesting is to adjust the boundary to this line here, this purple line. And so the first step in a boundary line adjustment between two cities is adoption of a resolution of intent. If that's passed, then after 60 days, there's a public hearing that's required, and then an ordinance, and it's required to be adopted between both of those cities. And then after that's done, an ordinance would be approved accepting the proposal. And so that's kind of the process. This is the first step in that process. It's about 2.5 month process to get through. And so this is the first step. According to the applicant, they're requesting this due to some utility constraints in being in St. George. Mostly the sewer. They're not able to serve this property very easily with the sewer line. And so adjusting the boundary into Santa Clara allows them to tap into Santa Clara's sewer system. And so that's the reason for the request.
We've done this before, John, on other sewer issues on that borderline with Santa Clara over the years, have we not?
We have, just near Snow Canyon High School. We did that boundary line adjustment a few years ago.
How many acres is that approximately, do you know?
Do you know what it is? It's approximately 20.
24.
Okay.
I believe the applicant is represented by Bob Nicholson, so he's got some good help. Thank you, Bob, for being here. Any questions, council, on this? Again, first step in a process. Adam and I met with the applicant actually some time back.
Yeah.
I think we understand it. It is a little bit of a tricky spot in terms of for us being able to serve. It would require some significant utility. We'd have to tear up that road, and it's deep, and it would be really tricky. So while we hate to sort of lose them, if you will, on the other hand, if it's really better, then it's probably okay to proceed with this. But just kind of my thoughts.
And Santa Clara did approve their resolution January 9th.
Very good. Any questions?
No.
Ready for a motion?
I'd like to support a resolution declaring the intent to consider adjusting a common municipal boundary line with the city of Santa Clara.
Second.
Motion by Betty, second by Michelle. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Ed this time, say aye.
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 That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Thank you, John.
So this is what happens with old retired
City
workers.
planners.
They keep coming back.
Okay, let's see. Should we go? Well, we could just go to number 9 because it's quick, Adam, if you'd like.
Yep.
So I'd like to make 2 appointments today with your if you're so inclined to make a motion, council. The first one is name Ron Woodbury. Ron Woodbury to be appointed to the Arts Commission. Ron is a banker by trade, I believe, but he's also a visual artist, and it comes with a great recommendation from Betty and from Gary Sanders. And so I would look for a motion, first of all, if you're so inclined, Betty, to make that motion to appoint Ron Woodbury to the Arts Commission.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'd like to move to support the appointment of Ron Woodbury to the St. George Arts Commission.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Betty and a second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Secondly, Jimmy brought to me, we need a new person on the St. George Housing Authority. And just to be safe, I'm going to make that appointment here. I'm not sure if actually we need to or not, but we'll clarify that later and do it here in case we need to. That's St. George Housing Authority is sponsored by St. George, but not really an entity of St. George, so it's a little bit different. But we have someone who's served on that board for a long time. Her name is Connie. Remember her last name?
I just know her as Connie.
I know it's Connie too, because I served on that commission or that committee. But the new person would be Jane Fehrenbacher. And I would like to, maybe Jimmy would make the motion to, if he's so inclined, to nominate, to appoint Jane to the St. George Housing Authority Board.
I would go ahead and make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy with a second by Joe this time. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
And
So
Jane is a resident of
she's
the
a resident
and
of
that she's
Dixie
taken,
Manor?
Yep, and taking the place of Connie, who was a resident. Our charter requires that a resident of Dixie Sun Manor have at least one resident on the board. So she's taking that position. So
I don't remember how many units are in that. Do you remember roughly in Dixie Manor, Dixie Sun?
I don't remember, but they're always full.
Yeah.
And they provide a great asset to the community. So
They're usually more elderly people.
Yes.
And we manage and through the, no, not like you, Joe. But we manage those, or the authority does, and they also manage several duplexes and own, and then they also manage and control the Section 8 housing vouchers.
Yep.
And this is all done under the authority of HUD, and it's a great little hidden secret, I think, but lots of good work, and Jimmy serves on that board representing the city council. So.
And Mayor, this is Charlene will be working with that group. Our new.
You mean Sherlane?
Sherlane.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Sherlane she's learning all kinds of stuff that she's over or working with. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And Adam, let's move on. Should we go to the addendum?
We can move to the addendum, item number 1 there, the hillside development permit for Teakwood.
It's out there by Little Valley, we went right through the hillside.
Okay, item 1 on the addenda is a request for a hillside development permit to allow development of a proposed 45-lot single-family residential development called Teakwood. The owner is Quality Development, Representative Steve Kamlowski. The location is approximately 3400 East Crimson Ridge Drive. Acreage is 19.99 acres. Zone is R18. General plan shows this is LDR. So here's your vicinity map. Here is, oh geez, having a brain lapse. Anyways, here's the airport. It's just below the airport right here. This is Bandit Hills Road that leads up to the airport, to the hangars and so forth on that side. And so it's just north of that and just to the east of 3000 East. A little closer picture there. Here are some of the photos from 3000 East looking up at the site. there's their drainage. You can see right here on this, so this is their slope analysis map. The red is areas that are greater than 40%, the green are 20 to 29, and the yellow are 30 to 39. So you can see there's just a smattering of those areas, those slope areas within this subdivision. The red line does represent, they were required to do a rockfall study as there is a fair amount of large rock up there. And the red line represents the extent of the rockfall hazard line based on their study. So they pushed it, they put the road between the homes and the hillside, and then the line just falls right along the right-of-way line there for that road. They do fall within their percentages. In the 20 to 29, you're allowed to disturb up to 30%, so they're just barely below that. And in the 30 to 39, you're allowed to disturb up to 5%, and so they do meet that as well. And then, there you go.
Questions for Wes, council?
Wes, as I recall, the hillside board, the distance on that rockfall hazard lines was quite lengthy, so there's no real big issues with any rockfall and drainage on that.
Yeah. Okay, if you're so inclined, ready for a motion for this hillside development permit.
I move that we approve the hillside development permit to allow the development of a 45-lot residential development known as Teakwood.
Second.
Motion by Joe, second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Preliminary plat.
Yes, so then item 2 is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 45-lot residential subdivision to be known as Teakwood. Again, it's the same location, obviously. So there again is your subject site. There's your preliminary plat. Again, you can see the rockfall hazard line. Let's see, they are proposing to dedicate this space right here and this space right here to the city as open space. There is an existing overhead power line through here that they will have to lower. That's a Dixie power line. It's just a distribution line, not a transmission line. And then because of the grade change along this, they are proposing to do walkout basements on these lots right here. And then you can see a fair amount of slope in the rear yards of these lots here for their proposal.
Questions, council?
I just make a comment, Mayor, that I continue to be surprised at the beautiful views that exist throughout St. George from all these different positions. It's really pretty out there looking north and west.
Absolutely. Pretty space, pretty place out there. Ready for a motion if you are, council?
Motion to approve the preliminary plat for Teakwood.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Jimmy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now another hillside development permit.
Correct. So item 3 on the addendum is a request for a hillside development permit to allow development of a proposed 25-lot single-family residential development called Juniper Cove. The owner is Quality Development, Engineers Development Solutions Group. Again, it's located approximately 3440 South Maple Mountain Drive. Acreage is 18.73 acres. Zone is R18. General plan is low-density residential. So again, there's your overall map. So the last one we did was Teakwood right here. This is Juniper Cove just to the south and to the west. Again, there's the airport ridge line right there. There's your zoning map. Again, some street views looking up at the property. So this again is their slope analysis, the slope analysis map for Juniper Cove. Again, you can see the reds are the 40, the greens are the 20 to 29, yellow to 30 to 39. So again, there's just a smattering of those slope areas that fall within this plat. They've kept most of them out of it. And I don't remember. And then you can see right here that they are well below the maximum allowed there in the 20 to 29% slope, which is 30. They're only going to disturb 12%. And then they are below the 5% that's allowed under the 30 to 39% slope. And they'll be at 3%. So they are below those limits right there.
Questions on this, council?
Wes, that's close to the secondary water line that's going to be in there to support those homes, isn't it? Pretty close.
Yeah.
No other questions? Ready for a motion?
Motion to approve the hillside development permit for Juniper Cove.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Joe. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Let me see if I can pull this.
And now the preliminary plat that goes with that.
Correct. Let me see if I can find, there it is. I had this up, and then when the thing went down, it like messed me up, showing my lack of technical skills. Okay, so item 4 is on the addendum is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 25-lot residential subdivision be known as Juniper Cove. Again, the location is south of Maple Mountain Drive and west of Marblewood Drive. Area is 18.73 acres. Zone is R18. So again, Teakwood was here. Here is the other site right here, this Juniper Cove. Here is their preliminary plat. There's a fair amount of elevation change here, so you will have a large retaining wall here that will take up the elevation difference between these lots is what they're proposing. They are proposing to dedicate this area right here as open space to the city. As Councilman Baku indicated, they are in a different pressure zone out there than a lot of Little Valley. And so they will be taking a line that comes off of Bandit Ridge or Bandit Hills Drive about right there, and it'll follow a trail that's already been kind of disturbed in there, and that water line will then come down through here and through there to provide water for this subdivision. They will be dedicating this area right here to the city as a utility corridor, and then they'll be dedicating, their proposal is to dedicate this area right here to the city as a trail corridor. So this is part of that trail that runs along the base, or runs along the rear of Maple Estates, comes along here, and then it'll come out here. We are still working with the developer. One proposal is to run the trail here, then up through here, and then through this easement right, or through that dedication there where the water line will be, and then along the rear of these lots out this way. The other option we're looking at with the developer and Parks Department is possibly running it through here, along the frontage of these lots, and then along Juniper Cove, along that east side of the road where there are no lots. And so we're kind of still trying to work that out. It gets kind of steep. I don't think I still have that on there. It gets kind of steep over here once you leave this area here to get it through here. So we're kind of working that out with the developer. Let's see. I think that's about it. And this is just so you can, there's the water line that comes off of Bandit Hills Drive that will then come down through here and provide water. It comes off of the airport tank.
It's like where we rode those mules that one time, right?
Where's
Can you believe that?
3,000 going to
Crazy.
connect down to the corridor?
Where's 3,000? So 3,000 east is more, let's see, is right here. And it'll come down. It's further to the west.
So there'll be good connectivity there to bring
Right.
those to a major highway.
Right.
Any other questions? Hard to believe they're building along there, but that's where it's gotten to.
Yeah.
Yep. Ready for a motion to approve this preliminary plat for Juniper Cove.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 5 from the council addendum is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 15-lot residential subdivision to be known as Johnson Arch at the Ledges Phase 1. It's actually an amended preliminary plat. It's located west of Northgate Peaks Drive and east of the Winchester Development. Area is 11.1 acres. Applicant is Development Solutions. Zone is PDR. So this is where it is. Here's Winchester. It's kind of on the western edge of the Ledges development right there in this area. And again, it's amended preliminary plat. The change on this is, one of the changes is they would like to, this is their cross-section of their road. So they're requesting to eliminate sidewalk along the westerly side of the development and put in a buffer here and then just do an 8-foot trail over here. So let me see if I can go back. So there would be, their request is to not do sidewalk along this edge over here and then just to do a trail along this side, an 8-foot sidewalk. The ordinance allows for approval of elimination of sidewalk within the hillside overlay zone if it can be shown that this would eliminate or would reduce the disturbance of the property. This area does lie within the hillside overlay zone. They are, and then another change is they are requesting on this one, they're going to kind of do a Kayenta type thing where this area right here is the developable area on each lot. You'll notice that they have large setbacks. They're proposing 40-foot setbacks. So that you would just be able to disturb a driveway coming in and a portion of this lot. There was a 50-foot setback that was approved when this came in, when they amended their master plan a while back. They'll leave this area here undisturbed right through here and mostly along the frontage. So none of these lots will be mass graded, you know, as they normally do when they prepare a subdivision. Each lot will be graded individually to match kind of the contours. That's kind of their fill. You know, one of the concerns we had was, you know, who's going to enforce this and so forth. They do have an association, they do have an architectural review committee at the Ledges, and they will be responsible to then make sure that they follow their plan as far as the setbacks and requiring that they only develop within those areas right there. The buffer will stay the same, and again, the changes they're proposing just to leave it native and undisturbed. And so most of their drainage, some of these lots will sit below this road, so they are proposing that in areas where it does, they'll contain the drainage on their site and possibly put in some type of sump or something just to dissipate it. It's a lot of sand out there, so it's very porous. And so that's what they're proposing to do with a fair amount of their drainage out there. So that's one of the requests is to eliminate the sidewalk on one side and put a trail, a larger trail on the other side.
It'll be free of short-term, no short-term rentals in there.
No, it's not approved for short-term rentals in this area.
Good questions and comments. Any others? Ready for a motion on this preliminary plat, if you're so inclined, council?
Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the amended preliminary plat for Johnson Arch at the Ledges Phase 1.
Motion made by Jimmy Hughes, second Michelle Randall. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And I think we have one more, right? On the flip side. I'm not sure who's presenting this. Adam, are you presenting it, or Paula, or Mark?
Mark is going to present this one, and maybe if I can talk long enough, we'll hear him come across the hallway. I think I heard a door open. Charlene's going to help us out. You know, it's fairly straightforward. This is simply an extension of the deadline to have the development agreement approved. We continue to work with the developer. They are moving. Have you been up recently? There's been a lot of work up there, a lot of infrastructure going in, and you know, they've got the detour in place right now. We believe that they're on track to get this development agreement approved, and it's pretty exciting. So it seemed like it was appropriate to extend the deadline.
Yeah,
and they're fine with it, especially based on what you've previously authorized and which I signed the other day.
Yeah, and Adam, this in no way impacts, we already approved the road on the west side. We're still going to have a road on the bluff, on the east side, second road up there.
We could. That's a possibility down the road.
So there's
a lot of work to be done on that. That's not something that we've got
still
planned right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Adam just summed it up, but anything?
You're good, Mark.
Nice that you
thanks
could
for
show
being
up,
here.
though.
You know, the 30-second delay
Yeah.
didn't work to my advantage this time, so I heard my name and I heard amendment number 5, but
You know,
How was dinner?
that Snickers bar was fantastic.
I would add quickly, due to the nature of this project, we have really tried to elevate this as far as staff and working with the developer. So we have a standing meeting. Mark, Shirlane now is involved. We have representatives from community development, from legal, and we're meeting with them weekly.
They met this morning, right?
To just keep this thing moving along, and we're excited with the progress. So it's good.
Can you give us just a little bit of a update since we're here in terms of what's happened this week? And
Yeah, this was a big week. Tech Ridge LLC now has property to sell and develop. And we closed on that property, and Mayor signed those documents 2 days ago. And
how many acres was that about?
It was about 14 and a half acres approximately. And that was, we call that Phase 1A, and that did not include the hangar that our facilities crew is still in right now. But nice to see that go. They're working on some things. We'll be coming back to you on changing the name of that Knowledge Way. We discussed that with them this morning, and the
Tell them
plans
to talk to Kelly.
for what's that?
Tell them to talk to Kelly.
So it's funny because that's the first step they'll take before they come back to you all, because we figured that would be your first question.
Please no.
We're trying to find a really nice road for that name. All right, and we'll find it. But they do have some great recommendations, so we'll be bringing those before you here fairly soon.
It is the old airport, and there is a name that's synonymous with flight, and that is Hughes.
Oh, there's an idea.
Keep the ideas coming, guys. We'll write those down.
In other words, maybe not that one, Jimmy.
Mark, can you tell us a little bit about that road that's being widened up, that's leading into it? It's closed off right now as you enter.
I can.
It seems like it's progressing pretty well.
It is. Their biggest challenge in putting that road in was the rock, and so they blew through contingency fairly quick on that. But we did give them credit for the portion that's complete towards the takedown of this 14 and a half acres. I suspect another 3 months tops before that road is connected, and that's Tech Ridge Drive. That's the main road through the entire project.
And the restaurant up there is surviving with all that construction. They're able to get in.
They seem to be, yeah. Traffic has kind of gotten used to that pattern, but although it's not ideal, it's working for now. Yeah.
So what this means now, the sale of that first 14 acres, as Mark hinted at, it now means that Tech Ridge LLC can sell the first pad to Printer Logic, who you probably remember their name, and Ryan Weedig, and they're working through, right? The city, they should be close. They're really close, so hopefully soon. The pad's all ready for them.
And so you got busy up there. You see their big sign up there. And
they're on the hangar.
Yeah.
And once Tech Ridge sells that first pad, I think you'll see close behind Busy's building, because they just need a little bit of money so they can build their building. And then I think probably the third thing we'll see will be some housing.
There'll be some condominiums on that north end.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, so the plans for Printer Logic, we've been going back and forth, and John Willis has been heavily involved. He's always there at those meetings on weekly, and Printer Logic has submitted their plans, and we suspect just a little bit longer before we'll start to issue them a permit and get them going on their building. So very encouraging. We're seeing some progress, and things are now moving fairly quick up there. We're happy about that.
And again, really the reason we're here with this amendment today is because we're trying to make sure we get the purchase and option agreement exactly right. And so we're extending the deadline to do that until March 31st.
And really, this
year.
is to let us, it's to let us have a little more time to finish up the development agreement
Yep.
and zone plan that is the accompanying document.
Exactly.
And so we feel, you know, there's been some exchange, and John and the legal department have been reviewing the development agreement, and it's kind of back and forth right now, but we suspect at the latest date, March 31st, we'll have that before the council, and of course, spend some time in a council meeting going through that document.
So council, are there any questions? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve an amendment number 5 to the purchase and option agreement with Tech Ridge LLC as has been described.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Betty, second by Michelle. Any discussion? Let's see, all in favor. This isn't a resolution, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Adam, anything else? I don't see anything other than reports, which we can go through in a minute here. Any need for a closed session tonight?
Not tonight.
I didn't think so. How about that? Okay. So, any reports, council? Betty, starting with you.
No, I don't believe so, believe it or not.
You saw that in that budget change, there's some money for that
Yes, I should say thank you so much because
to the council. Yeah.
to the council, because that will be thrilling to that committee.
And that feasibility study will be done by the same ones that did the
It's a
initial one.
continuation of the contract that we had with them originally.
Duncan Webb, I believe. Webb, yep.
Web management. So that should just be exciting. That'll
Good.
be moving forward.
Jimmy, anything? DTEC yesterday, huh?
Yeah, you mentioned the housing authority, and that's going well there. Just as a side note on that, it's interesting to note that those programs aren't just a free handout for the first time in a long time. We make people be responsible, and the first time in a long time we had someone that wasn't responsible and they were evicted. So it happens. They do try to manage each case and make sure that people are doing their part to receive those that need the help get the help, and those that don't, figure something else out. So, but going well at the Housing Authority, we met this week. We also met as the Switch Point board. Things are going well there. We're still working through some issues with the meandering title thing with the Riverwalk project and the tax credits that are coming there. We kind of we're getting a little nervous about our deadlines there. And DTEC, you can explain that because it went a little different than the last meeting that I kind of got everybody befuddled. But
yeah, well, it's as we talked about in our work meeting last week. The officially, Monday morning, the county commission basically requested that cities consider doing a resolution regarding whether they support or not the imposing of the fourth quarter % sales tax that is authorized by the legislature for counties to impose, or if they don't within a certain time, cities to impose. And so the county officially notified us in a Council of Governments meeting Monday morning that they would entertain that, and if they got a majority of the cities that passed those resolutions, they would impose that this year. So, Paula, Adam, being the nice guy I was, I volunteered to have us do a draft resolution that others would look at as well, and try to have something similar. So again, probably want to do this as soon as we can, but I'm sure it can wait till Sean's back. But I think we want to do a resolution that would work for that, so we can talk more about that. And then we'll. Okay, I'm not going to comment, but Paula, you're welcome to. You're welcome to. That's up to Adam, but so anyway, otherwise at DTEC, that was the main thing. We probably talked about that, and really the issue that we hit the most that went alongside that is we have every 4 years the transportation, the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, has to approve a plan for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, which is a fancy way of basically saying what we're going to build in the next 10 years and what we're going to build in the next 20 and so it's a total of really 30 years because it's 2020 through 2050. So and they're most concerned about the first 10. You got to be pretty close in terms of your ability to fund those projects. They don't really care how, but they just want this committee, the MPO DTEX committee, to basically approve and say we can get about 90%. We can tell you right now we'll get to 90% of that funding. And there's a list of every single transportation project that's been identified, and these are regional in nature. Not all of our cul-de-sacs, but any way regional street or highway in nature is on this list. And that is tricky. Right now, Jimmy, I don't remember the exact numbers, you can help me, but without that fourth quarter % tax, we're at, what was it, about, was it 64% funded? In other words, we can't do it. So that means either each city would say, well, we're going to have to figure it out, and tell Adam and Deanna, find the additional money in the general fund. We're already doing, I don't know, probably 30% of this on average is being funded by cities from the general fund instead of through the B&C road funds that are coming through gas tax and so forth. So we're already, frankly, more than we should be. So we all know, we're in a tough situation. So we went through quite the discussion, didn't we, Jimmy? The farther out we get, the tougher it is to know. But what we know is for the second 10 and third 10 years, we're worse. We get down to even as low as, weren't some of them as low as 36%?
Yeah.
And so, in other words, the ability to fund is getting that low. So anyway, we'll figure out some language. We'll bring it to the council. We can look at those if you'd like to. We'll look at those roads. You'll be intrigued to see how many of them are within our boundaries. A lot. And then we'll
we just approved. We just approved
right.
some funding for or to move forward on the planning.
Yeah.
Of the extension of
1450. Remember we talked about that, and we did on that meeting too. So, and the good thing is this means, if they're on that list, they're going to get some funding through the county, if you will, and not just from the city. But without all of us having some additional funding from somewhere, they ain't going to happen.
And those roads will be around where that new high school is going to be out in Washington that will benefit from it to make sure it's done.
Right. We are doing, through this COG and through the MPO, we are getting some funds for the extension of 2450.
Mayor, just for the public and for my clarification, this action taken by the county will just put it on a ballot?
No.
This will be?
No, they would impose it.
Clarify that. That means that this will move forward as we just discussed.
A majority of the cities. Yeah. So, and in St. George, Proposition 1, as it was called, passed.
It passed.
Not by a lot, but it passed. And it passed in Springdale and Ivans. And it was close, frankly, in most of the other places. So on that basis, I think the commissioners are saying, well, if the city councils will essentially speak for their residents in their cities, then we will honor that and we'll impose it, and that would happen this year. So anyway, that was the big thing at DTEC. Probably nothing else needs to be covered here, does it, Jimmy?
I don't think so.
Anything else?
That was a big step and a positive one to
big
relieve
step.
the financial burden on all the citizens, because now the tourists and other folks are going to be participating in paying for
30 to 40%
right.
would be paid for by them. And remember that 0.10, so if you will, if you're looking at it as quarters, 0.10% is transportation, .10 is transit, .05 goes to the county. And so the .10, that can also be, that can be used for new or existing maintenance, existing road maintenance. It can also be used for trails, especially as they tie to transportation. So anyway, it's important for us to look at. We'll see how the council feels about it. We'll give you as much information as we can. We're not just going to do this. I think, we've talked about it. I think we need to, this has got to be legitimate. I believe it is. I think, I won't speak for Betty and Jimmy, but we looked at the list and we approved the list the other day saying, well, somehow we'll figure out how to pay for it.
Right. Yeah, we didn't necessarily say that we are going to do these.
We didn't.
These tax.
We didn't bind this council.
The issue was we had to have either these things come off the list or we have to, say we're going to find a way to fund them.
That's right.
And if we take them off the list, then all of a sudden you make it look like when you go to these funding sources like the state and the federal government that you don't need those things. And if you go through the list, you'll find that there's not very much on there that we don't need, except for if it's in hurricane. No, I'm teasing. But right. So it's all needed, and it's only going to make things worse for traffic if we don't plan and figure out how to get them in as we move forward. So.
Well, the MPO is pretty representative of the entire county and all that's needed out there. So
it is
a good job.
And we did have a good discussion. I mean, and there was a lot of discussion on it, and some of the frustrations and the benefits and all that stuff. So, anyways,
thank you, Jimmy.
We got that one covered, didn't we?
We definitely covered that one. Just one other thing I'd like to bring up. No, I don't know if it's still going to happen. There's supposed to be a Southern, no, don't worry. There's a Southern Utah Clean Air Forum that is Monday evening, and I can't be there because I'm presenting to a group. I'll check and see if it's going to happen. It's Representative Stewart was going to be there, but I know he's not going to come into town now because of the shutdown. They're like all hands on deck next week to try to move some things along, apparently. So I will let you know if anyone has the ability to attend there in our representation. I'd love to have someone there. So I'll get back to you on that by email. It's over at the university if it's going to happen. It'll probably still happen. But it won't have Congressman Stewart there. Anything, Michelle? Nope. Okay. Joseph?
The good news is Planning Commission meeting is getting a little shorter.
Good. And by the way, we do have one opening on the Planning Commission, and we are going to advertise that publicly. That's, as far as I'm aware, the first time we've done it that way, but we will advertise that and put a link on our website, put it on Facebook. That'll be for Todd Staley. His term is up, and so we will replace him. The other two whose terms were up are going to stay on for a time at least. So
the application form that.
But we will do an application form, and then we will bring that back to you. So, and I want people to be aware of it. So if they want to serve, they can at least fill out the application, and we'll consider them.
You have one sitting in the audience right there.
Excellent. So watch for that, and we can. David Cordero will be posting that. If you have questions, talk to either he or John Willis. Ed, anything?
Just so you know, Mayor, the Air Quality Board met this morning, and they had quite a broad discussion, and we're looking at their mission statement, perhaps either initiating one or describing it more fully. And it's the development has grown to a certain stage now where perhaps they need to look at a little bit further as to what we can expect and plan out for 10 years as the air quality concerns and interests are changing and may change. And so you'll know that they wanted to have a meeting with the mayor's committee that meets, and so that they can make a presentation to them as to what they see for the future for the air quality, and receive some input and directions from the elected officials from these various cities.
Have them either let me know or Mayor Rosenberg.
Yeah, so that'll be in process, and you'll be involved with that.
And actually, Adam and I had a good meeting on air quality with a kind of a local expert, and we're going to look at a couple things and some potential new monitors, and so we'll get back to you on that as we learn more.
And just so the public will know, there's only 2 monitors, and they're owned by the city of St. George, Monitor and one in Hurricane, and that's it in Washington County.
That's it, and the ones here in St. George are really looking at the bigger particulates.
Right.
So
and they're talking about location placement at the replacement airport,
right.
The new airport out there, and the second site will be coming up. They'd like to tie in. I think it'd be good for them to have their publicity and so forth at the Transportation Expo that's coming up in February.
February 12th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., I believe.
Yeah, so it's all good stuff.
Thank you, Ed. Other thing I would mention, since you brought up a date, next week we will have a work meeting. Is it going to be a regular meeting? Did we decide? But it will be at 4 o'clock. So 4 o'clock next week here for your calendars. The following week, do I have this right? The 31st, we will have officially it will be a work meeting, but we will not meet here. We will go directly to Crimson Ridge Park in Little Valley, and we will cut a ribbon and dedicate that park. 4 o'clock again. 4 o'clock. Nope. It is not our plan to. Yep. If we end up having to discuss something, maybe we'll do it out there under the. Yes.
What date would that?
That's the 31st. It's a 5th Thursday. So we don't, at this point, have any agenda items, do we, Adam? So probably it will not be have any agenda items, but we have noticed, or will notice it up as a work meeting, because we will all be there and want to be doing things by the book. So.
And Mayor, I just talking about air quality. The Southern Utah Clean Air Forum Legislation for a Brighter Future will have a meeting on Monday, January 21st, 7 to 8:30 p.m.
That's what I was referring to earlier. That's what that is.
Right.
So if any one of you, I'm not, like I said, if anyone wants to go to that, please let me know so that we're represented. Anything, Adam, from you or from Paula? Ready for a motion to adjourn? That was really crazy, but that was okay. Motion by Joe, second by Michelle. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, if you dare? Okay, motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, one and all.